We have a great next session coming up here. But first, while they're coming up, I just wanted to once again thank all of our event sponsors, Aerojet Rocketdyne, the Aerospace Corporation, BWX Technologies, Maxar, Zinn Technologies, our symposium contributor, Bastion Technologies, our media sponsor, Space News. So thank you to all of them for their support of this event. So with that, now it's time to talk about something important to every company around here, the workforce. This is Plotting the Course, Workforce Mentoring and Development. So this session is moderated by Melissa Sampson. Dr. Melissa Sampson is the Lunar Infrastructure Strategy and Business Development Senior Manager for Lockheed Martin Space and is responsible for cislunar and lunar surface infrastructure, including power, lunar landers, and in situ resource utilization. Her experience spans business development, advanced programs, engineering, contracts, and government affairs. Melissa is an AIAA Associate Fellow, International Coaching Federation accredited coach, and a Lean and Six Sigma black belt. So welcome, Melissa, and welcome, panel. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim.
All right, so thank you for that amazing introduction. I am very, very pleased to be up here with this distinguished panel as we're coming into this afternoon after some amazing popcorn and cookies, which I hope everyone got some. We are excited to talk mentoring and workforce and all of the things that go into our careers and personal and professional development. I have the pleasure of introducing the panel today. To my right, Jeremy Blaylock, Design and Integration Lead with Dynetics, Space Division. Next, Megan Folk, SEDS representative and Case Western Reserve University alumni. And Lisa Wood, who is a senior director with Ball Aerospace. With this being said, I'd like to start with having each of the panelists introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll move into questions, both questions for the panel and audience Q&A. So with Jeremy, would you like to kick us off?
Thank you very much. Jeremy Blaylock. I work with Dynetics, part of Leidos. Previously, I was a design and integration lead for the Dynetics Human Landing System. So basically that job entailed making sure all the systems and engineering work together with the NASA requirements. And even though we didn't win that contract, and congratulations to Blue Origin on that, very well won, we learned a lot. We worked with a lot of the NASA centers, including Glenn, Marshall, and KSC and JSC, on a lot of the systems and the interoperability between our lander design and how that interoperated with the NASA systems. For instance, I like to say that if you remember the movie The Martian, right? You think of how Matt Damon survived on the surface of Mars for all those days, right? You think he's the big hero. Wrong. He's not the biggest hero. The biggest hero in that movie is the radioisotope thermoelectric generator, which he dug up and was able to provide power and heat for his pressurized rover so he could transit the Martian surface. So really my job is to make sure that all the pieces fit together. That's from the conceptual design, how the orbital mechanics, how we dock with the refueling vehicles, how we dock to surface assets. Prior to that, I worked at Gulfstream Aerospace. I worked my way up through engineering ranks from a junior engineer all the way to the program manager of the G650 aircraft fleet, and that was about 1,500 aircraft. That job entailed working with engineering, the project engineering, and the certification regulatory authorities to make sure that the jets met the customer's expectations, that we had the technology to meet the customer's expectations, and that any changes that were going through the engineering organization met the regulatory body. And it was mentioned previously, the FAA regulatory body exists to keep us safe in the air. And we will see regulation as the space industry grows and develops, and a lot of that came into play through, unfortunately, loss of life. Hopefully, by taking a advanced step forward with that, we can make sure that loss of life doesn't happen or it's minimized.
Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Folk. I recently graduated from Case Western Reserve University with a degree in biochemistry. I am a SES Satellites intern this summer, and in the fall, I will be pursuing my Master's of Engineering degree in space engineering at the University of Michigan. During my time here at Case Western, I helped found the SEDS chapter. I see some students nodding in the audience. It's an amazing organization, and I am here today as a SEDS representative. As well as my time here at Case, I was conducting research in the School of Medicine, where I looked at human physiology and how that was affected by space travel, as well as conducting research with the Blue Marble Space Institute of Science, looking at how sugars are a potential biosignature. I am super excited to be on this panel. This is the first time I've ever done something like this, and I'm really looking forward to learning a lot through this discussion, and hopefully providing a little bit of the perspective of a mentee instead of being a mentor. So thank you.
Love to follow that. So thanks. I'm Lisa Wood, and Michigan grad, so I'm excited that you're headed to Ann Arbor. So I am currently the Senior Director of Civil Space for Ball, and I work in our Washington office in DC. But I started my professional career as a GS7 at Goddard Space Flight Center. I don't know if any of you fellow civil servants know the PIP program, the Professional Internship Program, not the Performance Improvement Plan. I don't know if they've changed the name since then, but I was a PIP. And it was the first time I was introduced to a mentor. So we were assigned mentors. I then discovered the term dementor. So I started my career having a different mentoring experience, but happy to share some other positive experience through this panel. But I am an engineer. I have a graduate degree in space policy, and have been worked in the aerospace industry, since 1988, so many decades to age myself, and I'm very happy to be here and share all my experience with you guys.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to take the moderator's privilege and start the panel off with a question. And I'll just leave this open to the floor, whoever each of the three of you would like to jump in. So the first question is, what are some of the attributes of excellent mentors? Or I would say the reverse also. What are some flags to be careful of? And the second part of the question is, what is your opinion about how many mentors a person should have?
I'm gonna reframe that in a way too. So, I think there's many characteristics of a good mentor, including like the willingness and desire to be a mentor. Ergo, my dementor comment earlier. But I want to flip it to say too, like, what makes a good mentee? I think that's almost as important as finding the right mentor. And as a mentee, I think really figuring out what you need out of that development, that relationship. Certainly it can turn into a networking opportunity, but as a mentee, you have to figure out, okay, I have limitations, or I have a particular, 2, 3, 5 year work plan. How do I get there? Who can help me? Who has the skills and attributes that I admire? And really figure out what you're trying to get out of that relationship. And then, the attributes of what makes somebody that, a good mentor is, obviously the good listening and empathy, and they have the skills and truly, the desire and the time commitment to be available as a mentor.
Yeah, I would love to add on to that. I also would agree that I definitely think a mentor-mentee relationship is definitely a two-way street. And just having that clear communication and the goal-oriented aspect of the relationship of what each person knows what they're going to get out of the relationship. But also, I think that another really large point of reason of having a mentor is really pushing you outside of your comfort zone as a mentee. And I wouldn't be standing up here if my mentor didn't tell me that I should be doing this. And so I think that's adding on to having a wider perspective, having someone who is a seasoned professional but also has gone through many different avenues to where they are in their professional career. That's in my personal opinion, what I look for in a mentor.
I would say, as a mentor, you're not their boss, and sometimes you might be, but that relationship, you shouldn't be their boss. Like, they're not looking for someone to tell them what I should do in this situation. They're really, like, why you're doing is that they're looking for your experience. And it's really the times when you tell, okay, I tried it this way and I failed horribly and comically. Maybe you shouldn't do that. But I'm not going to prescribe a course of action for you, but maybe you can try to go this path because there be dragons this way.
Excellent. I would love to hear your thoughts on one mentor, many mentors. Do you have to be exclusive with a mentor? How have some of you handled that?
I think, again, depending on what your objectives are, out of a mentoring relationship, like I think a lot of our friends and family relationships, not one person can do everything, that we need to, cover all the bases. So I think it's appropriate, to certainly seek out different mentors. It's a time commitment. So, you really, it may be that over the course of your career, you're not having many mentors all at the same time, but I think it certainly makes sense to seek out, what are the attributes of a particular mentor that you're not going to get, in other aspects. With other people. I also think one of the key things of mentoring is kind of how you said, you want to find where the dragons are, avoid the dragons, but also you want your mentors to have the opportunity to see you in action, so that if you have some, self-described or self-aware limitations, seeking out a mentor or mentors who can see you where you're at your best, where you're not at your best, so that they can take those moments and have those difficult conversations with you. That may need several voices, several different people to see you at the different parts of your career. So yeah, it really depends.
Yeah, to add on to that, yeah, I definitely would agree, more than one. Not one person can do it all, but yes, taking into account the commitment and the availability for the relationship that you're going to have. It is a relationship, you have to build it, and being able to be in contact with that person, whether it's physically or, with us, now in the hybrid work environment, that is definitely, very important. And I would agree that, it's more so growing through mentors and continuing on while you're going through your career, rather than having, so many at the one singular time.
I'll counterpoint that, is that with a mentor there is the social contract, whereas if there's someone I need to talk to and there's some large life-changing choice I have to make, I want that one person to talk to. And having a broad group of people to talk to, and this is your friends, your parents, your coworkers, or your peers, it's nice to have that, but it's more of an advisory panel versus a mentor who has, like I said, the social contract to know I am the person that my mentee comes to for this advice, and I know that I can talk to them more candidly than a friend can. And it's almost not so much as like a medical counselor, but it's like I trust this person to take my advice or not, and that person trusts me to give it in a way that's objective and it's meaningful to my personal circumstances.
Excellent. And this is what the panel is all about. It's about the opinions and perspectives, which is exactly what mentoring does. So along those lines, my next question is about reverse mentoring. Certainly throughout my career, I've had a variety of mentors who are both more experienced than me or less experienced, depending specifically on the skill or situation I was trying to address. So I'd like to hear the panel's thoughts and experiences around reverse mentoring.
I'll start. I'm a big fan. I didn't really know the term reverse mentoring until about 4 or 5 years ago, and a good colleague of mine, I'll name drop her, Deborah Factor, she's just been a great aerospace leader. She had introduced to me, in her, senior career, the benefit of engaging with, early career, high, new employees or even, interns, not just from the social media technology. It's not just, hey, help me, figure out how to Instagram. It's really, a lot of cultural exchange. It's about age diversity. It's about getting all sorts of different perspectives. And I love the term. I've certainly engaged in it myself. I've also learned an adjacent term from one of my 20-somethings. She does this in her company, and I love it. I've learned a little bit about it. It's called peer-to-peer mentoring. And so within, a company, a leadership team, or a group, you have regular engagements with your peers, where, in a particular frequency, monthly or whatnot, you're partnered up, and typically it'll be a more senior, less senior person on that team, and you'll exchange, opportunities and highlight some successes. So I think that no matter what you call it, constantly being curious and getting feedback and wanting to know, what are my blind spots, or how am I peering, or having some particular questions, I just think it's an absolute asset for any of us to take part of.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of experience with reverse mentoring, but I do think to stress the point of, learning from the early career individuals. I'll bring up the point of, most people will not ask formally, will you be my mentor? That's just, not necessarily what an early career Gen Z person will do. And Jeremy brought up the social contract and the having that joint understanding. And I think that's a really good way of, pointing out reverse mentoring, of building that relationship without having the clear cut saying, you are my mentor, will you be my mentor? So.
See, I'm at a weird age. So being in early 40s, I'm at the transition of being, the younger person on the team to starting to be the older person. And a lot of us at this age are kind of getting to that realization is that, hey, there's people in the workforce that are 20 years younger than you are. And, I had a unique experience at Gulfstream when I joined the program office. I was probably the youngest in that organization by about 20 years. And so, we had these guys and ladies who had been doing this for so long, and they came to me as like, how do we engage with the younger customers? Because we had CEOs and entrepreneurs and billionaires who were coming out and buying these $100 million jets, and they had no social means to be able to communicate with them. And so we had a younger sales team, and how do we market to that? So how do you talk to them in a technical term that they'll understand? And so, they were always coming to me and saying, how do I do this? How is this? And it's not like asking your parents who, you become IT tech support after a certain age. It's a weird thing to encounter. And I think that having younger people on your teams is a very, very good thing, just like having much older people on your team is a very good thing. And diversity is good. Diversity makes us stronger in that we have individual perspectives and individual life experiences. So I like to always have a mix on my design and engineering teams. I have, mechanical engineers, I have industrial designers who come from very, very different backgrounds, lots of different ages. So the design philosophy from the 1970s is very different than the design philosophy from the 2000s and the 2010s. So having that perspective on our teams makes, from a design organization, makes us really, really strong and able to pivot, based on customer needs.
Excellent. I am so excited to talk reverse mentoring. So I appreciate each of you sharing your experiences. I'll say for myself, and I'll add just a quick note here. Something for me was really learning to get a lot better at my direct messages. With my DMs, to use the proper emojis, to not be offensive, unintentionally. Yeah, to not, what I thought was nice and polite and welcoming occasionally could come across as rude in a DM. So I went and asked around, and I'm learning.
I just don't. just use English. Safer.
Yes. So, but yes, I learned which smiley face.
Yeah, there's different ones.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes. So that being said, one more question for the panel, and then we'll open it up for some audience Q&A. But one of the questions that I run into a lot is, how do you end or close a mentoring relationship?
It's tough.
All right, I'll go.
You- you-
Yeah,
no, you're-
obviously,
you're at that
of course I
side
have
of the
it.
table.
I think I like the term social contract. So I feel like one thing that you can do going into a mentoring relationship is commit for a year and like proactively say, okay, would like this mentoring relationship, and so you kind of identify what you're trying to achieve and even put a time on it. So after that 1 year, you can make a proactive, collaborative decision. Should we continue this? It's not just a given. So you could actually bake in, a shelf life to a relationship, to a mentoring relationship, in a way that mechanism could make it easier. You still need to have the conversation around like, okay, I'm not going to re-up this. I've gotten what I would like out of it, or I'm going to pivot to some other objective. So, having some of those concrete things that are a little bit more, objective can be helpful to script and to have that conversation. And, perhaps stating the obvious, but anytime you're ending anything, it should be in person and eye to eye, and with all due respect and humility and appreciation for the time commitment. I mean, it certainly, whether it's a monthly or it's more frequent, I mean, you've both spent quite a bit of time cultivating that. So it certainly deserves all the respect that your other professional relationships get, and maybe even a little bit more. But I know for myself, and I am an engineer, and I love this expression, I'm an extroverted engineer, so I stare at your shoes. So for me, having some script to some of these conversations really helps, so that I, even with this panel today, I like to have everything, written down. So, and that might help too, because it's not always easy having, conversations, when it's a senior-junior relationship too. So give yourself all the advantages of like thinking through it in advance.
Yeah, I have had to end a mentoring relationship while at school, and that's exactly how I went about it. Yes, with all mutual respect and trust within that relationship. It was a one-on-one conversation. I felt that this mentor had kind of a closed-minded approach in where I wanted to go, and my journey just took a different path. And we were working on a project together that I felt was, no longer that I was passionate about, and I couldn't keep on moving forward within this project if I wasn't going to give it my all. And so within that conversation, it was, extreme gratitude for everything that I had learned from this person. And it's a tough conversation to have, but, and if you do it respectfully, and it's always going to end, with all the best, and, still keeping in contact with him. So
That's a very positive outcome. So I can, getting rid of a mentor kind of like a divorce. It's like, I've enjoyed our life together. I've enjoyed the experiences I've had with you. I just want my life to continue with less of you in it. So it's, you can outgrow people. You can grow to, appreciate people's opinions more or less, because you grow and your experiences grow, and you can see that your life, like the optics you see your life through, may change. And whereas, when you were in your 20s, you think someone is just the most amazing person in the world, and until you get to really know them. And sometimes in a very small subset, that person can be the person you thought they were. Like, for instance, like when I meet a NASA astronaut, I think, these people are amazing. They're the most amazing humans. And you're like, you go and meet them, you're like, yeah, they really are the most amazing people. And then, you meet like a chief engineer when you're, like an E1 or E2, and you realize after you go on a business trip with them that, okay, you don't want to associate with them again, ever. Yep, on this planet or any other. And so how do you end that? Because if you have like a corporate mandated mentorship program, they're your assigned mentor. And to get that person, that was a really good draw, right? And so how do you go through the channels without ticking off your entire command chain how to end it well? And it's awkward, and that's part of, I'd say like any breakup, you do it diplomatically, you do it professionally, and navigating that is part of the learning experience. So you can end relationships like that. You can start new ones. I would say, you have your main mentor at the time, or you have many, or none. But I would say if you can get one, especially for you students, try to find one. Try to find someone who is willing to take the time for you. That's what's most important, is take the time to talk to you individually, to listen to you. And it's not just, okay, we have 2 hours, on Tuesday to talk. It's 10:30 at night. I have to make a really big decision. What should I do? And someone you can make that phone call to is who you want to be your mentor.
Excellent. Well, let me open it up to the audience. Are there questions from the audience?
While she's walking to the mic, I just wanted to make this public service announcement. You mentioned organizations. I have found the Society of Women Engineers to be an incredible organization to find mentors or to have that conversation. AIAA, I assume, has just as much a robust. My company has a relationship with CU Boulder. It's a sister, big sister mentoring program, and so finding a mentor, there's all sorts of different ways to do that, and the organizations I think are great.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Callie Koenig. I'm an intern at Glenn Research Center this summer. And you guys mentioned from a mentor perspective how it's kind of hard to connect with that younger generation, but for some of us students and potential mentees in the audience maybe facing the reverse of that problem, do you guys have any tips for how to initiate a sort of mentor relationship in a society that's maybe not comfortable with just outright asking, like, will you be my mentor? How do you feel out if someone's willing to be a mentor without overstepping any boundaries or becoming a nuisance in that kind of sense?
I think I'll grab this one. Okay, so this one's near and dear to my heart. The biggest thing to do is ask. In these industries, you're in luck, especially in space. Working with NASA, the bar is so high to get into these organizations and to have these jobs is that your average base level manager or senior level person is willing to do that because they are usually superlative in some way or another. They've gone through the same stuff you've gone through, and they're willing to help, and they want to help, especially NASA civil servants. They want to help you. I would say be bold. If you find someone that you find interesting, that you say you're sitting in a meeting and they put up a chart or they present something really well or they make a statement in public that you like, hey, I like the way that they do that. I want to learn how you do that. Ask. And all they can say is no or a resounding yes. Most people will probably say yes, and that's something that took me a while to learn, is that I had counselors in college that were terrible, and I had one really good one, and what he always told me was, you're going to have ups and downs in aerospace, and it's like, find something that you love to do, and if you can't find something to do, find something that makes you enough money to be happy. And it's silly, but I thought it was really good advice because he realizes that not everything is just dreams and flowers and rainbows every day. At the end of the day, we work in these jobs to have a career, to support our families and our ambitions. So, but that was meaningful to me because it helped me ground and realize why I do this stuff. I love space. Absolutely, it's so much fun to work on. But at the same time, it's a career that provides for my family and my kids' future.
I'm going to add on one thing to that question. I was consulting some of my colleagues about this panel because I didn't just want to reflect my own mentoring experience, but about finding a mentor and that willingness to cold call. Absolutely, cold call. Hey, would you be interested? But this experience a woman related to me is that she was interviewed to be a mentor. So a young woman, reached out and put some time on the calendar with the subject being, I'd like to talk to you about mentoring. It wasn't, will you be my mentor? But it was really, describing to this colleague of mine, these are my objectives. These are the things I'm looking for in a mentoring relationship. And through a back and forth conversation, at the end of it, this woman said, yeah, I think you'd be great. Sort of like using the marriage relation, the analogy, like, a date, like, hey, this is great, and then after that, she said, yeah, would you be willing to be my mentor? So I think that, it's not just a yes or a no. I mean, make sure you know what you want, and it might be after that first conversation, like, no, this isn't really going to be a match. So I think to have that confidence and advocate for yourself about what you want out of it. Absolutely, we all want it to work, and it but it just might not be. Like we talk past each other. Yeah, fair enough.
Yes, I would love to emphasize that, because I've had that experience where I've been interviewed. And also, a lot of times, if someone does ask me to be a mentor, if we haven't talked at all, I'll ask for a 30-minute, essentially an informational interview or informational chat. Because I want to know what the mentee is looking for. I want to make sure that I'm the right person. I've had conversations where someone is looking for something very specific and it's really not in my area of expertise, and then I can help them find someone else. It also gives someone the opportunity to get to know you and vice versa. I believe that mentoring it's very much a two-way street, as the panelists have noted. I also believe that it should be easy with a high level of trust. You should not be stressed out or worried about the mentoring relationship. So it needs to be a good fit. So sometimes it's hard to say yes or no on the spot if you don't know each other. I think if you have a background in a relationship, as Jeremy had mentioned, then it's easier. But I definitely, and sometimes I'll say, to Lisa's point, it's a lot easier to get 30 minutes of someone's time versus asking them for an ongoing commitment up front. So lots of options, and I think there's a variety of styles and tools that you can use, just depending on your personality and depending what's a comfortable approach for you. So, other questions from the audience?
Okay, so hi, I'm Tessa. I am also an intern at Glenn Research Center this summer. And Mr. Blalock mentioned diversity on a team and used industrial design as an example, which at least at my school isn't a STEM field. So as someone who's not pursuing a degree or a career path in STEM or even business, how do you as mentors try to bridge the gap with those of us in art and design, education, social sciences, and just other non-STEM fields in general?
Sure. So proximity helps. Having groups, especially on large projects, like coming off of HLS, we had manufacturing, we had purchasing, we had procurement, we had legal, we had marketing, and so when we'd have big meetings going through that, we'd have a broad spectrum of liberal arts to pure analysts to engineers. So we could kind of intermix with that. At some companies, you may not see that. And that's where your organizations like SWE and ASME, LinkedIn's a great source, is reach out to people in industry that you find interesting. And sometimes that'll happen organically, but a lot of times it is a purposeful hunt.
Okay. Yep, we see one, maybe. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ellie Purdy, and I'm also a summer intern at NASA Glenn. So say you are working a project or you're in an organization and you are assigned a mentor, but that mentor underappreciates your work, or they make the project their own and they make decisions when you're not there. What would you say to someone, or what nugget of advice would you have for those who can't end a relationship but instead are forced to repair that relationship?
That's a tricky one.
Yes.
And that's where your communication skills, I certainly would recommend, being really clear, with your mentor, dementor. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble with using that term, so I'll stop saying it.
No, please use it. I love it.
Because the other part of communicating is, there's a hierarchy of support, and your success that summer is everyone's, job. It's not just the person assigned as your mentor. That whole team needs you to be successful. We need you to be successful. So it's really advocating for yourself and being respectful, but communicating that that's not working, and that how can you broaden that conversation so that other folks are, partnering with you to be successful. You've only got a short period of time with that internship, so yeah, you've got to.
It's not with the internship, it's with an organization back home.
Oh.
Nothing wrong with NASA.
Copy that. Yeah. Okay. Copy. I'm going to pass the mic then, so I can apologize to anyone at Glenn on that.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I have had experiences very similar as well, and I think Lisa outlined a very, very great plan of action. Advocating for yourself and finding other people to help advocate for you as well. I think that is really, really important. And also adding, not including the emotional component of when having that tough conversation of just laying out the facts and saying, this is not working. And it really depends on your personal opinion of whether or not you believe that you can, ultimately repair the relationship to have, mentor-mentee relationship, or it just becomes, co-workers or colleagues and working together on a certain project. And, you know what's best for you. So, yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's hard. It absolutely. It happens. Yes, all of us up here can say, yes, we've been in a similar situation. And Megan, and that was an excellent point about building advocacy, standing up for yourself, but also building people around you, whether it's sponsors, other mentors, advocates, peers who can also help support you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Carrie Zippe with Team NEO. So I'm wondering, what are some of the more soft skills, in addition to the technical skills that can be conveyed through a mentoring program? And then what are some specific methods that you may have used or would recommend using?
Okay. Availability. I think that's really important. It's not just, like I said earlier, it's not just giving them, 30 minutes on a fixed time. It is the understanding that you will be available when needed, and there's a certain level of priority given. So, when you're on a big project, you can have a calendar booked, double or triple meetings all day long, right? And then suddenly, Susie, your mentoree, wants to talk to you. I'm like, then you clear out some time and talk. And there's a certain level of priority that has to be given to the mentee. As for the soft skills, it's working with them to establish the goals. Like, what do they want to get out of that relationship? What does she need from this, and what can you provide as the mentor that meets what she's lacking, what she's looking for, and then what are her next steps? So what are the enabling things you want to look for in your mentor-mentee relationship that you can both work forward together to get there? I would say those are the two most important, I would think. And then in timeline, whether it's going to be an indefinite relationship or you turn into a pumpkin after 3 meetings, that'll kind of happen organically.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, Melissa. So I'm coming over to this side of the room so you all don't get a crick in your neck. And so this isn't a plant question. This is an honest question coming from me. So what, in your, we're talking about future workforce. We're talking about, what's going to be needed in the future. So what should companies, it's a two-parter, I guess. Should companies' mentorship programs stay as informal as you're talking about, or should they work to formalize it more and put things in place to kind of mandate time on mentors' schedules to do this, that kind of thing. And then also the second part is, what have you seen companies either do or not do with respect to mentorship programs that you either think they should or should not do? So, turn it over.
Do you want to start then?
Sure. Okay. So, working previously at a Fortune 100, we had a mandated mentorship program, and without speaking negatively of the pros and cons of that, the biggest issue with any mandated program is the continuance of that program. A lot of times they start off with a lot of energy. There's a lot of engagement. The workforce is fully engaged. And so, make it part of their metrics from their evaluation year to year. It's like you will mentor, so many employees, at so many hours per week. You can do it metrics based and make it punitive if they don't meet it, or which, I don't find that as effective, because as business needs continue, the money makers are going to drive those metrics, right? And slowly but surely it'll peter out when they don't see that as a value driver. So I think having an informal, not a metrics based, but having an informal program which is formally implemented and reinforced can be very meaningful. So asking, so how do I find a mentor? So if your company wants to do that and would support you wanting to do that, then I would say, you could start a grassroots campaign and say, hey, me and 10 other fresh outs want mentors. Go talk to your program managers or your VP of HR and say, hey, I want this program. It's like, what can we do to make that happen? We have a large contingent of new hires that need to be mentored, and there will be people who will do it who aren't forced to do it, and they want to do it, and you get a better value from that.
I'll add one thing that I've experienced that's really helpful is in our company we have these resource groups, and we have a young professional resource group. So anyone that joins the company and considers themselves young professional, this organization has quarterly speed mentoring events. And so any one of the young professionals, even if they're not in the group, can go to these speed mentoring events. And so someone like myself would participate as a speed mentor, and then out of that, I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, Lisa, out of that speed mentoring conversation, would you be my mentor? And so it's informal, and yet there's a regular opportunity to make sure that there's absolute advocacy for mentoring, time, on the calendar to do that. So I think that knowing that I think used to also have a very formal mentoring program that petered out, it lost some of its momentum, and yet, we still want to make sure there's some infrastructure to, around the idea, and even beyond the young professionals event within my own business unit, organized, again, speed mentoring, and it does bring together, sort of randomly people, but out of that you get exposed, kind of a little cross-pollination of other people around the company that you might not have thought of as a mentor, rather than the I'd say forced matchmaking, just to try to meet as many different people as you possibly can, and then you might have that, blink like, oh wow, yeah, I connected with you on that. I'm interested in following up.
Yeah, in my experience at SES this past summer, what has been really interesting, I've never been a part of a mandated mentor program, but what's interesting about SES, and I guess it's a little bit of an anomaly because it's a little bit of a smaller company but global, every person who has an intern working for them had to express interest in mentoring this intern. So HR did not give anybody an intern if they did not express interest in mentoring this intern through the interview process. So that has been really, really cool. And HR has also set up this program with coffee chats. So interns are able to sign up, specifically putting down what departments of the company they would like to speak to. And an employee has also signed up willing to say that they're willing to meet for, a 15-minute, 25-minute call to talk about what they do, and kind of, getting that foot in the door of like the 30-minute, info meeting, even, just 15 minutes, 25 minutes, figuring out, over a cup of coffee or in, a virtual setting. That has been really successful and really engaging. So.
Great question, Jim.
Yes. Other questions from the audience? All right. Well, I'll ask one more that was touched on briefly. So for a lot of us, we may be in a hybrid work environment, whether it's our job, our volunteering, or other activities. I would like to hear the panel's thoughts on how do you mentor in a hybrid or remote situation, particularly in the technical fields.
I'll kick us off. So, right, coming off the last project, we had a workforce that was all over the country. And, for some of these large, I would say marquee programs, you need to be able to hire hybrid people who are fully remote, who may not want to move from, Bozeman, Montana, but they may be the best, cryofluid management engineer in the country. So that's something that we have to recognize. And where we found the most difficulty, and it's really unfair to, graduates who went to college during the pandemic and started work post-pandemic, they have never been in an office ever, but yet they've been on a major prime space program for 3 years. They've never interacted with a team socially. They've never been on site, but yet we hear their voices day to day. We're on video chats, and they are contributors. They're frontline contributors to a lot of our projects. We build a social banter through our meetings, and we found that the hybrid communication worked really well. And here we are, designing a moon lander in our pajamas all over the country. And what's crazy is that it was working, and we got really far in the development. And by the time we were ready to put our proposal out, we had a very compelling offering. But we had that with people who have never been in an office before. So the mentoring, in my section, I had guys who, like I said, never been in the office. So how do you mentor? So what we did, so we'd set aside time every day, and that's the time component to say, how's your life going? What's different? What do you like? What do you dislike? What questions do you have? Because they don't have the ability to experience the office politics. They don't know, the ebb and flow of the team. They don't get the hallway conversations, and they also get excluded from a lot of the social aspects of that, which is really detrimental. So, but the how you combat that is the inclusive-ness. So even if you're having a meeting, you're like, hey, let's call Nick into the room. Let's go grab a chalkboard, or not chalkboard, I'm so old. Grab a virtual board and pull up a Teams meeting, and that's where the reverse mentoring comes in. So like, hey, what's the best way to communicate? We're going to use Slack. We're going to use Teams is archaic, right? How do we communicate in a way? We can text. We use FaceTime. As long as it's not secret, there's a way that we can talk to each other and communicate. So having the knowledge of what's the best way to communicate virtually. I mean, Discord's a really good one. So it's getting people to talk across distances, and that telecommunications. And it's funny is that the last place I worked, we sold business jets. So right, we sold the FaceTime. So we called it a time machine. So how do you get FaceTime with a client or a customer? Well, you go fly there. It's like, is it really relevant anymore? When you can, instantly get a full video chat at HD, 4K video and 60 frames per second. Is it really necessary? And we found success in doing it. And we made a lot of engineering progress with a very diverse and remote team. So it is possible, but I say what's important is the time. It's like spend the time with the individuals on an individual basis.
Yeah, to add on to that, if you have the opportunity to go in the office, I would say go in the office. In my experience, even just those 2 days a week, and matching up when your mentor is going to be in the office, because, that, FaceTime and like being together and even just, getting lunch is really, really valuable time in building the relationship. But Jeremy outlined, great ways of, getting online and, setting up those one-on-ones, aside from work, to also build those relationships as well. But, I know the young people like really don't want to go in the office. It's, such a haul, or, the transportation time, but really just even carving out like 1 day or 2 days a week, and your mentor is going to be in the office, that's really, really valuable time.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are getting close to the top of the hour. Would any of the panelists like to make some closing remarks or share some final experiences? I can also start.
Yeah.
Kick us off.
Sure. So we'll wrap up here before we get Jim back on stage here in a moment. I just wanted to say thank you to each of the panelists, Lisa, Megan, Jeremy. It has been a real pleasure to be up here. I appreciate the diversity of opinions and experiences. So hopefully this provides a good toolkit and some opportunities for every person in this room and online. There's no real right answer to mentoring. It's what works for you and the mentor. And there's some ways to figure that out through different approaches, whether it's remote, if it's going to the office, and being bold and asking whether someone wants to set up a mentoring relationship or an informal chat. So mentoring is critical. I will also say in closing, it's been a very important part of my career up to this point. It still is. It is something that I look to continue for many years and all the time. So don't think that it's something that you do just at one point, that all of us should be doing it, whether it's mentoring or reverse mentoring. Any other closing thoughts?
Just say, don't be shy.
Mm-hmm.
And say yes. So that's just, just in general for your social stuff, especially, getting right out of school, you are intimidated as hell by the people you will meet. There are some really spectacular people who have accomplished so many things in your life, and you're out of school and you're like, yeah, I got a B in thermal, so I'm pretty cool, but like you have no idea. But guess what? The people that you look up to probably did the same thing or made worse grades than you. They've gone through all the pitfalls and they worked hard and they had someone, pulling for them. Just like in the entrepreneurship, you don't do it alone. It takes a group of your peers and mentors and senior managers and junior managers and friends to really help you be successful. So you don't have to have a specific formal mentor, but you can get mentorship from everybody.
Yeah, nothing to add really.
Yeah.
Agree with all that, and I think too, while I did come into my professional life with not the most ideal mentoring, what I've since actually come later in my career to appreciate is actually even the value of networking, of the network, and so a relationship that might have been a peer or somebody that is a colleague, really establishing that network and taking advantage of it, and going to different people for various needs, I think is really critical too, at any part of your career.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, great. With that, we will close. Thank you for an exciting hour of conversation, and it was a pleasure to share the stage. So thank you.
Thanks.